But that's not really you, right? Because you're not something else. You're not someone else. You are you. So who's that person?
In this episode, we'll be talking about a holistic approach to self improvement. Helping us with this is a holistic life empowerment mentor, a Microsoft professional, and the host of the Unleash Thyself podcast. Welcome to the show, Constantin. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Toby. I'm doing excellent. I have a big smile on my face. The sun is out. I get to have a conversation with you and then get to go on a walk with my dogs through nature. So, I mean, it doesn't get better than that, right?
Yes, that's beautiful. That's very, very perfect. Yeah. And thank you so much for joining all the way from Canada virtually for this conversation. I'm looking forward to, having this very soulful conversation with you even after reading that, you left Romania or moved all the way to Canada and you chased the American dream. I don't know if you would like to start out with that. Like, what was your intention? What were your intentions? What was your inspiration of leaving Romania in Eastern Europe and moving to Canada to chase the American dream?
I'll keep it simple, right? It was a funny one because I was 17 when I moved, which meant I had no choice. It was my parents that made the choice. You know how when you go through life sometimes and you think that you got to make big changes and you have no choice in that. That was one of those scenarios for me because I was in high school. Parents are like, we want to give your kids a better future or a chance at a better future. And then we came to Canada. And of course, they were right because so many more doors opened up here with the schooling and then the jobs and the entrepreneurial market and all of it.
Yeah. So would you say, yes, that was like the best, decision your parents could have made for you? If you look at, being where you are right now, working with Microsoft, if you think back at the moves that your parents made and the adjustments that you had to go through, the challenges you've had to face to, I believe, adapt to a new culture, to a new environment, we say, yes, it was
Yeah,
worth it.
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, of course, hindsight is always 2020, right? So we always can look at it and say, well, it was a great option or not. Of course, it was because both my brother and I have successful careers, have been able to have amazing degrees, amazing connections, amazing everything, really. And we owe it all to our parents for making that tough decision to leave everything behind. And they were in their 40s when they moved. And coming to a country across continents where you don't speak the language, you don't have a lot of money, you know some people, but that's about it, right? And of course, they're not the only ones that have had to make that sacrifice. There's many, many families that have to make these big changes. And my heart goes out to anyone listening that either had to make a big move or know someone that had to make a big move because it is not easy, but at the same time, it can provide so many benefits down the line.
That's very true. I mean, you hit the nail on the head already. Or change itself is very, very difficult sometimes, but it comes with benefits if you could pull through the storm that comes with with the shaking. Yeah,
Exactly.
yes, and despite your accomplishments, like you've mentioned briefly, despite your accomplishments in the corporate world, you found yourself entangled in severe depression, and you had to fight your way through that. You had to look for a way out of that. But I would like you to walk me through this experience of yours. Like, how did it start? Most people think once you've accomplished everything, once you've gotten to that milestone where you want to achieve your life, depression has no place to find there.
You're absolutely right, Toby. And that's exactly how it went for me as well. I was actually in denial for the longest time. For me, it was 2021, coming out of the pandemic. And at the time, I was working in a different role for Microsoft, all about enabling people to work from home through tools like Microsoft Teams and others. And it was a fairly rewarding job because I got to be the person or one of the people that essentially allowed others to still keep their jobs and work from home because there was no technology at the time for them to work from home. So it was very rewarding. But at the same time, it was a job where I was putting in 60 plus hours a week because you see, you, as a high achiever, talking to pretty much everyone in the audience right now, you end up realizing that to get ahead, the gurus tell you you need to work harder. To stay at the top of your game, you need to put in all the long hours, and you can take the break when that's over. You can take the break when you get a promotion. You can enjoy the money or everything you've earned when you retire. All these beliefs that society puts on us that I've taken for granted, right? So then I was, of course, I've always been a high achiever, a top performer. So I was putting in the 50, 60, 70-hour weeks, week after week after week. And then 2021 comes, I get this big promotion, comes with all the bells and whistles of a big promotion. And I'm so excited because I've been working really hard for the past few years. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. But then the dust settles and you find yourself in the same place you were just a few weeks ago. You're like, yeah, I got a bit more money. Now I can buy more shiny toys. But then what? You still don't necessarily have a lot of joy. Your identity is tied to your job, because mine was tied to my job entirely. Then you spend the time doing what? Escaping the reality by, if you're me, playing computer games, Netflix, food, and other vices. And again, no judgment there because we've all been in a situation like that at some point in our life. And I was back on this hamster wheel where I'm like, okay, so I got this big achievement. Now what? And it was this disconnect between my outward success. So people would look at my life and say, wow, you have it all. The American dream, right? You have the house, you have
Yes.
the wife, you have the dogs, you have the money, you have the shiny toys, you have the career. I wish I had your life. And then internally I would be like, only if you knew. So I felt very alone, right? Which is something that I didn't think was possible in such a connected world. And you know how when you start to feel alone, you start to isolate yourself even more because you're like, well, I can't bother people with my problems because again, they think I have it all. So how is it going to look if I tell them how it is? And then you, because you're a high achiever, you start seeing, well, okay, I've dealt with everything in my life, so I'm going to deal with this as well. And you try to do it all yourself. So all of a sudden, there's another vicious cycle that starts where you isolate yourself, you try to do it all yourself, and then you dig a deeper hole. And that's what I found myself most of 2021.
Mm. Wow.
Now, you may ask next, right? Like, what do you do from here? Like, if you find yourself in a spot, and many listening right now, and many of the people I get to work with right now, Toby, to help them get from this stage to a stage where they achieve more calm, they connect with their true selves, they get to find their purpose in life and execute on it, improve their relationships, all of that stuff. It all starts, in my opinion, with looking back at what I call your foundation. And for me, that foundation was, what were my thoughts and beliefs about myself, about those around me, about the world? Because you see, Toby, my thoughts or my beliefs were that I am alone, that I can't impose my pronouns on anyone else, that I have it wrong because society tells me that what I have is success, what I have is abundance, yet I didn't feel that, right? So that it all starts with us. But that's a difficult conversation for most people to have because of how everything is portrayed on social media. If you go to Instagram, you only see the good things, right? So then you start comparing yourself to that. The news, again, same thing, right? Like they show some negative stuff, but it's not, look at this person, they're successful, but they're going through all of these things. Unless it gets to be, something more drastic and then they promote it because it gets clicks, right? So that's kind of what I found myself. And until I started looking at my thoughts and beliefs and started to dive into neuropsychology and neuroscience, which is one of my favorite subjects, psychology in general, until I did that, I wasn't able to pull myself out because my beliefs and my thought patterns were self-fulfilling. I thought I was alone. I was seeing more opportunities to be alone. I thought I wasn't supported. I was seeing more opportunities to not be supported. Because what else would I see if I'm only focusing on the negatives?
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, thank you so much for taking us on that journey. Like, I find it also very, very relatable. I mean, even in a little way, a little accomplishment that one has had. Sometimes when you're struggling with one thing or the other, people, I'm originally from Nigeria, for example. Back at home, we believe you have achieved it all. You can't be sad. You should be very, very grateful. But then if you talk about your struggles, no one really understands. And because you have this fear that people are not going to understand, you keep it to yourself and you keep on suffering within, which is very, very unhealthy, actually.
Oh,
Yeah.
Toby, you hit the nail on the head there. And you came from Nigeria. I came from Romania, Eastern European country, where especially men, you pull up your pants, you don't cry, you don't show emotions.
No, you don't.
If you feel bad, you keep it in, and that's it, right? You don't talk to anyone about it. Now, here's what's interesting, Toby. I came to Canada, right? And a lot of your listeners are from the USA, so they'll see the same thing. You have so much diversity around you. And I had diversity from across the world, all the continents, a lot of the countries. And what surprised me the most, Toby, is that it's not just the East European culture or the Nigerian culture. This is actually happening across all cultures. Now, some do a better job than others, but for the most part, there's always a taboo around discussing challenging things or bringing them up, having an open conversation, because for whatever reason, there's this perception that if you show that you're not perfect, that your American dream actually has some cracks in it, or Canadian dream, or whatever dream you're chasing, that then you appear weak, then you appear not good enough, then you appear like you're falling apart. And you might be, but there's no shame and judgment and, I don't know, anything negative around it if you open up from the heart. Because yes, there will be people that might judge you, but those are not people you want to talk to anyway. So that's an easy way for you to distance yourself from them. And that's what I had to do in my life as well. As I began my journey since 2021 to now, so over 3 years, I've been able to make so many new connections and friendships that I never thought possible. Yes, I lost some in the process because as I progressed myself on this path, some people didn't align with me anymore, or they were scared about my light shining through, and they distanced themselves. And that's okay. It could be heartbreaking initially, and it was in some cases, but there's so many more amazing souls entering your life by you being true to yourself that you realize that you wish you would have done it all your life. At least that was my experience.
Yeah. So how would you say you feel right now after being on this journey for 3 years?
Yes, I mean, so let's go to the stage a bit in 2021. So I had a great job, great family life on paper. I would dread waking up every morning. So when you go to bed on Sunday night, tomorrow is Monday, and then Monday comes and you're like snoozing the alarm clock a few times. And you're like, I don't want to get out of bed. I know I'm gonna have to commute for X amount of time, work 12-hour days, and I have to do that for like 5 days in a row, maybe even six. And then eventually it's getting too late. You click this, the to shut off the alarm, and then you get out of bed, and you're already miserable because all these thoughts and patterns have been going through your mind about the day. So you're starting the day on the wrong foot. You go make your coffee, you go start your work day if you work from home like I did. And that was my life, right? And then 7, 8 o'clock came around, and all I wanted is to take my mind off of how bad I was feeling, either through work or through my own thoughts and beliefs. And I would do what? I would game, I would go eat out, I would go watch Netflix. And then what happens? You stay up too late, right? Because you're like, oh, but this feels good. I want more of this dopamine hit. I want to stay here. And then this vicious cycle goes on where you sacrifice, now what? Sleep. You sacrifice sleep, you sacrifice self care, you sacrifice anything to do with your well being because you have this one thing that you're not truly happy with, let's call it your work. And then you want to escape on the other side with everything else, which is the distractions that are so prevalent in today's day and age, your phone, social media, Netflix, we talked about it. So that's where you were finding me back in 2021. And most of the people I get to work with today, that's a place where they find themselves to some degree. Now, on the other hand, Toby, because I've been able to continuously work on my foundation, as I call it, my thoughts and beliefs, get much more clear on my purpose in life, my mission in life, my gifts and strengths. Honestly, I don't remember the last time I woke up and I wasn't excited for the day ahead. It could be a Monday, it could be a Saturday, it could be a Sunday, it doesn't matter. Not only that, but right now I go through my day looking forward to the present moment and whatever it is to come in the day, because I know that whatever comes is for my highest good, whatever that means to you, right? Because in everything that happens in our life, there's always a lesson or two to be taken. Even if it's something negative, we can always look at the positive side. And that's where you find me right now, because I used to be filled with negativity. It's like, oh, this is not going well. This is not good. Look at the news, and the news is showing us all the negative stuff, right? And you know how the
Yeah.
train goes.
Yeah.
So that's how you find me today. Honestly, I feel like I am a brand new person as of 3 years ago, fulfilled, joyful, happy, grateful, you name it.
No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really grateful that you've started to experience that difference, those changes in your life. That's really beautiful. And you made mention of, visiting the foundation of your life. Like, yeah. So I'd like us to go to that foundation and talk about it a little bit. So how would you describe it? Like, the aspect of your emotional health, your mental health, spiritual health, and physical growth, basically talking about it from the foundation aspect up to now. What would you say? How would you say they are all related to each other, and what would you say one has to do in order to improve oneself to come out of depression, for example?
Yeah, I love that question, Toby. So what I've come to realize on my journey is that the four pillars you mentioned, which are critical for one's life, and I'll repeat them really quick. It's your mental health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, and your physical health. And spiritual is not religion. It could be whatever spiritual practices you have. And if you're agnostic, that's fine as well. You still have something that you believe in or don't believe in. But what I've come to realize is that a lot of us focus our attention on one or two of these pillars and ignore the rest. Now, for example, your physical health could be tied to your weight. Like in my case, I've been overweight a significant amount of my life because of the sacrifices I made and also using food as an escape from what happened, right? And I'm in the process of making significant changes there. A lot of them are being very successful. But what people don't realize, the physical health is also the quality of sleep, the quality of food. I'm not talking about in terms of like calories, I'm talking in terms of like nutrients, right? So the supplements you take, all of those things. So one of the first things I was able to change right away in my life that provided immense value was the quality of my sleep, because sleep was the first thing I was sacrifice to get in that extra episode of Netflix or to work those extra 5 hours that I had to put in. And what I have found is that if you are like me or any other high achiever, which is like you want to be at the top of your game, you're going to focus a lot on your mental game, right? Like your mindset. Like I'm going to be doing this, you're going to be, really good at that. But what tends to happen then, there is a sacrifice that happens across your emotional pillar, which includes your relationships, right? Could be your financial health in there as well. And then, of course, the spiritual pillar. You may not, let's say you used to be someone that go to church and you like doing that, while you stop doing it. Or maybe you're someone that meditates a lot, you start sacrificing on that, right? Or not even have a practice to begin with, all those things. And of course, on the physical side, that's an easy one to see, right? You stop exercising, you don't eat as well as you used to, or not at all. You don't sleep. That's a very easy one. So, what I look at right now is how do we look at these holistically and say, well, we don't want to sacrifice any of these. And it's okay to have a priority because, like seasons in nature, you have seasons in your life where sometimes you have to be more on top of your mental game than your emotional game, and that's fine. But how do you look at it holistically and say, I want to focus in one area without sacrificing the rest? And then that's going to bring more balance into your life. And all of a sudden, you're not losing your relationship because you spend too much time on your work. You're not losing your personal health because you spend too much time on something else.
Yeah, wow. So I mean, they all work hand in hand, basically.
They do.
I mean,
They do.
yeah, yeah. So I want to go back 3 years ago.
Yes.
So I mean, you are not in your best state back then. What would you say you are still able to achieve everything you wanted to achieve? Because I know you're an high achiever, and you put in the hours to achieve what you've achieved. How would you compare the goals you've achieved back then, how you were in terms of work, and now that you've gone through the journey of growth and journey of self discovery a little bit?
So I would say the biggest change to me, and that's an amazing question, by the way, is the fact that I wasn't necessarily grateful enough in the past, and I definitely did not celebrate my achievements. Yeah, sure. When I got a big promotion, I went out and I had a big celebration with some friends and family. But for me, those two were big changes because if you look back at your life is filled with moments where you can be grateful and moments where you can celebrate. And those are not just birthdays or big occasions. And a big part of what I get to look back now is like, I get to look back and celebrate all those things I have achieved and be grateful for all the lessons and everything that has been given to me in my life, despite it being seen as negative or positive. Because let's say you go through a breakup. Is it negative or is it positive? Well, it depends who's looking at it, right? And if you're looking at it now in the moment when you go through the breakup, it might be seen as negative. Maybe 2 years down the road, you now realize, wait a second, that was actually positive for both you and the other person because it allowed you to do certain things. And that's really what this journey has allowed me to do, bring more gratitude into my life. Because when you come from a place of gratitude, more opportunity starts to show up. Because again, it's about rewiring your brain from negativity to positivity. Because if you look at the flip side of gratitude, what is it? It's the idea of like lack and being like, well, this is not good enough and focusing on what's negative about something. Gratitude is saying, you know what? I'm grateful I have this roof over my head. I'm grateful I have the food I have on the table. I'm grateful that I have the pillow that I'm sleeping on tonight or the bed. It can be simple things like that, which our brains are not necessarily trained for initially. Same with celebration, because when I work with my clients right now, celebration is a big part of what we do. Because most people have a poor relationship with themselves, meaning that they usually talk to themselves worse than they would talk to anyone else. Not only that, they don't treat themselves the way they would want to treat others. So when it comes to celebration, right? Did you make your bed this morning? Did you brush your teeth? Right? Did you take the dog for a walk? Did you make yourself a coffee? Those are things you can actually celebrate. And there's a lot of research in neuroscience, more recent ones as well. They showed that actually building a practice of gratitude and then of course celebration as well. Not only does it release dopamine in those moments, so it makes you feel better instantly, but it builds a pattern where you essentially start to see more of it into your life, and it's done automatically by your brain. So the process here is that the more you celebrate small things, the more your brain goes like, oh, wait a second, that actually feels good. I'm going to do it automatically. So like any new behavior, you do it long enough, it's going to become automatic, which means you're going to be a happier person by default.
That's true. Yeah. What's better than becoming successful in life, becoming a very happy and successful person? Yeah.
Exactly. And you see, like you put a big smile on your face, Toby. And for those just listening, I'll invite them to do one exercise here, Toby. No matter what state you find yourself in, put the biggest smile on your face that you can. Just fake it if you want to. And what you realize, and you can then go Google this or go to ChatGPT and look up at the research. They have found that even putting a big fake smile on your face will release the good feel hormones in your body. That's dopamine, serotonin, and all the good feel hormones. So that means that if you need a pick me up, a quick one, it's just put a big smile on your face. Yes, it can be fake, but take it to the next level. Think about something you're grateful for. Maybe you have a pet. Maybe you have a favorite person. Maybe you're just enjoying a donut or whatever it is that you're enjoying right now. Drop into the gratefulness aspect of it, and you'll see your life changing overnight.
That sounds beautiful. And I believe this is a tool that we could also use to elevate our personal and professional life too, once we
Absolutely.
bring in gratitude into it. Yeah.
Well, that's a great thing. Let's take professional life. How would gratitude help us in the professional life, Toby? And for those listening, think of the relationships you have at work. When someone reaches out to you and says, hey, Toby, you've done such an amazing job on this project. You are an inspiration for me. Thank you. How does that make you feel?
You feel very happy.
Right? And it's like, oh, I had an impact on someone.
Yes.
Now reverse the roles and be like, well, what if I send a message like this to someone? And ideally, not ideally, you want to be honest. It's not just sending the message just to send the message. You're like, this person actually did an amazing job. They had an impact in my life. Let's show them gratitude. And a message is all it takes. It could be a text message. It could be a voice message. It could be a message in person. It could be when you jump on a call. Maybe you jump on a team call. But this is something I used to do with my work and do it all the time now. After 2021, I said jump on the call and I'd be like, hey, team, before we start this meeting, I just want to say thank you to Mike. He did such an amazing job on the project. He saved me so much time. Thank you so much. Right? It could be as simple as that. And now you're elevating them in front of others. And imagine, like, put yourself in the shoes of Mike here. How would you feel?
Very good.
Right? So that's how
Yes.
you can bring gratitude into your, and keep in mind, this is celebration as well. These are both hand in hand here because you're celebrating Mike in the scenario as well. So you all of a sudden, what you see is as you start to change yourself and you bring some of these things internally to you, there'll be opportunities for you to bring them externally as well. So if you're the type of person like myself that perhaps for a while you thought that you want to change others, yeah, you don't like your boss, you don't like your partner, you need them to change. Try to go in inwards first. Try to change yourself first and see how everything else around you will change. Gandhi had a famous saying of like, be the change you want to see in the world. And I always kind of, laughed at that in the past. Not laughed, but I was like, that sounds woo, that sounds fine, but it's not for me. And then I realized what it really means. For me, it's like if I, let's say, Toby, you're my friend or family member, doesn't matter, or coworker, and I don't like something about you. Maybe, you say something that triggers me. Maybe you do something that pisses me off. What I have found right now, Toby, is that that's an opportunity for you to take a look. So the person that feels that way, to see why is that bothering me? Because almost always it's something to do with you. So if you're saying something that makes me upset, that means that there's something I haven't dealt with myself internally. So that goes back to the foundation, thoughts and beliefs, right? Because you say something, a thought and a belief gets triggered in my mind. So maybe what you say triggers a thought that I'm not good enough, and then my defense mechanism kicks in and I react. And I get upset with you, or I yell, or I walk away, or I throw something, anything like that. So think of anything that happens in your environment, in your life, as an opportunity for you to reflect and say, what can I learn here? So now every opportunity, everything that shows up in your life is a learning opportunity.
Yeah, that's very, very beautiful. And when you were talking about this, I just remembered a statement that I've heard over and over again, and that is, life keeps on bringing the same lessons back to you until you actually learn it, until you pick it up. So people keep on triggering that particular thing in your life if you don't look inwards, reflect on them, and work on them. Because in A we annoy you in the same way, because in B we do the same thing, and you'll be like, why is everyone against me? It's because you've not learned that lesson, you've not looked inwardly to actually work on that aspect of your life.
Toby, I love this so much. That's a brilliant way to look at it because it's so true. Like you see, you have a partner and you break up with them because they don't satisfy you. There's something is wrong with them. And then you go have a new relationship. And then that partner does the same thing. And you're like, wow, how can I find two people that do the same thing? And then you break up with them and you have a third person and they do the same thing. And you're like, well, how is that possible? And then you look at your jobs. You leave a job because your boss is not good or your coworkers are not great. You go to the next job, same pattern. And it's exactly to your point. It's not because we are bad people, but there are things that we haven't worked through that when we're in proximity of others, especially people that we get to spend a lot of time with, they reflect back to us what we need to work on. And as soon as you start to work on that and make progress, all of a sudden those things stop bothering you. They may still show up in your life, but now you have a way to overcome them, to conquer the challenge, and you just see abundance on the other side. I can't tell you how many of these situations have come up. I used to have a relationship with my family, well, in particular my mother, very loving relationship, but we would have a lot of fights because she would say something that would trigger me. Then I would retaliate and I would say something that would trigger her, and there would be this, yelling competition. But then, a day later we would be fine. But obviously that doesn't do well for a relationship over time. Since going on this path, I don't remember the last time we had a fight because it's not that she necessarily changed, and she listens to my podcast, so she knows some of this stuff, and she may have changed, but I changed. I started to look and say, okay, well, when my mom says something, that triggers a thought or a belief in me. And if it's a thought or a belief that's negative, and there's plenty of those, like, for example, that I'm not good enough, right? She might say something that I interpret as her saying I'm not good enough. That starts a vicious cycle where from a thought or a belief, it goes to a feeling or emotion, right? So now you feel like you're not good enough. You feel like you're a failure. You feel like, why bother? Again, back to more thoughts and beliefs. And if you think about what happens after an emotion or a feeling, usually it's an action, right? So maybe I was planning on going to spend time with my partner after this, but I got pissed off. I'm feeling less than. I'm feeling not good enough. I'm going to decide to spend 2 hours to game instead, to try to forget. So now it's affecting my relationships. It's affecting my health. And this is what tends to happen a lot in our lives without us realizing, because you may know this, Toby, and people listening, but up to about 95% of your thoughts and beliefs and everything else that follows is done at the subconscious level, meaning that it's done without you even being aware of it. So when your friend says something and you react right away, that's because you already bypassed the process, right? A thought or a belief got triggered, an emotion and feeling came in, and then you took an action, which was the reaction. All of that in the span of what? A second, less than a second, maybe 2 seconds, because we are not aware of a lot of these things that happen. So it's almost like if you look at a computer or a cell phone device, it's like you're running the new technology, the new hardware. So let's say you just bought it this year, but the software is from like 20 years ago or 30 years ago, because these are stories that are pre-built within you that you can change if you want to, but you need to become aware of them first.
That's very true. You have to become aware of them first. And that's why we have people like you to help. So,
Yes.
for
And
example,
like yourself, right, with your podcast, because what you're doing is you're bringing awareness to all these things, then now people can go, I understand.
yes. And that's when I started this podcast too, the idea or the concept that came to me was basically placing a mirror in front of you so you could see what you have to
Yes.
work on. Yeah. I'm not
I
going
love
to,
that.
I'm a student of life myself, so I can't tell you this is what you have to do and this is what you have to do. But through these kind of conversations, you'll be able to think about, yeah, I see myself in that. I
I
have to
love
change
that. I love
that.
Toby.
Yeah.
And essentially what both you and I do in many of these cases is we plant seeds in the minds of those that listen. And the guests that you bring on, the guests I bring on, we plant seeds. Now, these seeds, like anything in the wild, if they have the right conditions, the right soil, the right water, the right season, they will start to grow into big ideas. So that's why if you're listening right now, you look back at your life and see, you know what Constantine is talking about, I've heard it like 5 different times. But maybe you didn't have the right conditions for the seed to germinate and become a big plant. Maybe what we're talking about, this is the water you were missing, or maybe this is the soil fertilizer you're needing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of how all of this goes. And you said, the student of life, this I don't see this journey as ever stopping. Like an onion, there's multiple layers to it. And as you work through one, more opportunities arise. And if you look at
Yes.
anything in nature, when something stops growing, it essentially dies out. And that's how we are as humans as well.
That's very true. Yeah. When something stops growing, it's the process of death has begun.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Yes. So can you tell us how you use your coaching program and your podcast, which is Unleashing Thyself, Unleash Thyself, to help people to reach their full potentials?
Yeah. So on the podcast, much like the amazing work you're doing here, Toby, I bring in guests from various fields, from doctors, colleges, but also spiritual people. Because I'm in this process of transforming myself, I have discovered spirituality in a way. If you may, I was agnostic most of my life, grew up religious, but on spirituality in the sense that I understand now that there's a bigger connection between all of us. There's a bigger connection between us and nature. There is something out there, and it's bringing in practices like mindfulness, meditation, breath work, all these beautiful practices that bring you closer to yourself. And my podcast is dedicated to looking at the science and the spirituality world and bridging them together and realizing that they're not polar opposites and they're fighting with each other. It's actually supplementing each other and helping each other out. So then you, whoever is listening, can have a much more joyful and fulfilled life. Now, with my coaching, what I have done, it's funny, I've been a coach and a mentor all my life. Ever since I was about 7 years old is when I first remember being a math and sciences tutor back in Romania. And then I'm 40, I just turned 41 a few days ago. So for these, 34 years or whatever, I've been either a coach or a mentor in anything from soccer to esports, to online poker, in Microsoft, in my corporate career, I've always been someone that if once I learn something, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to tell everyone else and help them on their path.
Yeah.
And as I was going through this transformation for the last couple of years here, I say 2021, 2023, people kept coming to me and saying, hey, Constantine, well, how have you achieved so much in so little time? How have you gone from this depressed, suicidal person to this person that wakes up every day and can't wait to tackle whatever it is that's being thrown at them? And the more people are asking the questions, the more I was like, okay, well, you know what? Let me put a program together. I'm going to backtrack and see what I've done, put them in the right sequence, and then let's test out. So I took some people from my life. I took some, from my job at Microsoft, friends, anyone that would want to try. And then I put them in this 3-month program that was all about building strong foundations and aligning them with their purpose and getting very clear on their gifts and strengths. And all of a sudden I was seeing within weeks, massive transformations. People that would dread waking up in the morning, weeks later, months later, they'll be like, can't wait to get up and take on the day, right?
Yeah.
People that had goals that were 5, 10 years out, like starting a business or going for a big promotion. They went from dreaming of it in 5 years to implementing it within a month or two, right? People getting promotions, people starting their dream business 4 or 5 years earlier than they ever thought, because of the power of rewiring your brain, as I call it. And I'm certified in something called neuroencoding, which is the language of your subconscious mind and nervous system. And it combines a lot of different techniques, neuroscience, of course, but also NLP and hypnotherapy and other things. And I use a lot of that science, of those science-backed methods with my clients. So really what I tackle right now and the people I work with are high achievers. So people that know that they are meant for more, despite whatever success they may have. So they're usually very successful, but like me, they feel unfulfilled, they feel stressed, they feel burnt out, they feel anxious, depressed, and they want more calm in their life. They want better relationships. They want to have the success on their term, but they want to have the calm that's possible. And those are the type of people I love to work with, because they're making a true difference in their life and in the life of so many others.
Yeah, that's very beautiful. I mean, going into neuroscience would be a different episode on its own because I believe it.
Yes,
There's a
there's so
lot to
much beauty
it.
there. And I know you've had some people on to discuss some of that, because I've been looking at some of your episodes as well. And what I would say for those listening right now, neuroscience is actually not very new. Like the subject itself has been around for a while, but a lot of the discoveries are much more recent, specifically one around neuroplasticity, which is your brain's ability to create new neural connections and essentially rewire itself. So like if you had the belief all your life, they thought for the longest time that that's the belief you're stuck with for the rest of your life. That whole saying, you cannot teach an old dog new tricks. Well, actually, that's wrong. You can. So it's the idea that it doesn't matter if you're 15 or 50 or 100, you can change your mind. And if you can change your mind, that gives you all the power in the world. And that's why I love neuroscience so much, because the research shows us, well, you can do all of this. Spirituality tells you can as well, right? They talk about the law of manifestation, wow, magnetism, all of these things. They're all connected.
Yeah, that's very true. Wow, I've really learned a lot from you, Constantin, in this conversation. Thank you so much for opening up about your story, and that also teaches me the importance of vulnerability. If a client comes over to you and is struggling with being vulnerable, I mean, opening up, for example, how would you encourage such a client?
I love the question so much. And I love that you asked that. Vulnerability and then followed by authenticity have been transformational for me and every client. So let's start there really quick, and then I'll answer your question. What does it mean to be vulnerable? It doesn't necessarily mean like, Toby, I just met you at a party, I'm going to tell you about how depressed I was and how suicidal I was. That might, scare people away and be like, oh, that guy's a weirdo. And that might be okay, right? I mean, might not be your people. Vulnerability to me means that you're not trying to be someone you're not. And you're okay sharing the good and the bad and not hiding who you are. And if you're vulnerable, or you get to a state where you can be vulnerable and be like, yeah, I can talk about my depression as well as I can talk about my success, no problem. Then authenticity comes through. And if you think about anyone that you admire, anyone that you look up to, could be close to you, could be someone online, you likely have strong feelings for them because of their authenticity, because they are authentic. You feel like they're telling you the truth, that they're showing you who they are. So then reverse it. Think about yourself. Can I be more authentic? Can I bring more of me out to the world? And what's that going to change? Because here's, Toby, a quick story on the power of this. At Microsoft, I took my story, I put a PowerPoint presentation around it, and I went and did this in front of 20 plus people on my team. I told them about my suicide, my depression, and how I went through it, pretty much what we talked about in more detail.
Mm.
It was the first time anyone on the team did that, or even in our entire department. And people were in awe the entire time. It was like 45 minutes presentation. And they called me after, and it's like, wow, Constantine, can't believe what you just shared. This was like the highlight of the week. You inspired me to do A, B, and C. You did this. So your story has the power to inspire others to step into their greatness. And what happened then, Toby? Doors opened up that I never knew existed. People started putting me in touch. Oh, you gotta talk to this person. You gotta talk to this person. They're doing amazing things. The two of you can partner up. And all of a sudden, I had partnerships starting up that I never thought possible. New friendships, new connections, new opportunities coming up because I chose to be vulnerable and authentic. So what happened is my story impacted people, elevated myself in their eyes, so to speak, and opened up so many doors. And that's what I believe it can do for everyone. So now, if you're someone that's afraid to be vulnerable, and you come to a coach like myself, or you go to a therapist, or you go to anyone to talk about, it's okay. That's the first thing. It's okay. There is no judgment. That's why my tagline is no judgment, just love. So when you come into my world, I listen. And I listen a lot and I ask questions. And you're welcome to share whatever you're comfortable with. But what I recommend for people that don't necessarily feel like they can trust someone is start small with that person. Like, so follow their lead and then start sharing whatever comes naturally. And you see if the person can create a safe container. And there are very good therapists and coaches like myself and others that can create the safe environment for you, virtual or in person. You will see that it will naturally come out of you because we are not meant as human beings to not be authentic, to not be ourselves, to not be vulnerable. Because think about the old ways of living when you lived in a tribe. There are always elders and you had gatherings around the fire, and so to speak, and you would talk about what was going on. Again, there's lots of research around it. You can go find it. So for those listening that you're in a place where you want someone to talk to, but you're afraid about sharing your darkest secrets, you don't have to start there. It's one layer at a time, right? And then you slowly start to share more. Because when I started this journey, Toby, I was like, oh, but I can't share that story. I can't tell people I was depressed. I can't tell people I was suicidal because what would they think of me, right?
Yeah.
And as we go through the process together, think of it, we start to break down those beliefs that are not supporting you. And the more we break down those beliefs and rewire your brain to more positivity, to new beliefs, you start to realize that these stories hold no power over you. And you sharing them frees you up, but also inspires and empowers others on their journey, which is mind blowing to me because it was something I didn't realize when I started on this path. Though I didn't realize that me sharing a story like this will actually impact someone in, let's say, Asia or Europe, or even where I am in North America. And then I have people coming all the time, either from shows I've been on like yours or my own show, and say, like, wow, thank you for sharing your story. That gave me the ammunition I needed to be able to share mine. Can you help me share my story? And I'm like, of course. I mean, that's this all about, because your story has the power to not only change your life, but the life of many other people. And if you don't share it, then you're doing yourself a disservice and you're doing a disservice to others as well.
Exactly. I think once we are able to open up and share our stories with other people out there, or maybe with, coaches like yourself, or therapists, or with trusted friends, we'll be able to peel those layers of the onions and get to our true self,
Yes.
the core down inside of us.
Exactly. Because I'm part of my programs, for example, Toby. So I have I call it a 5-step system. And it's funny enough, the name of the system that I have right now is called the CPR system, which is the Calm Positive Purpose Rewire system, right? There's a double P
Yeah.
there. But it's designed really to bring that balance for people, because it starts with bringing more calm into your life so you don't have the chaos of running around. So the 5 steps starts with the calmness through the foundation, right? So your thoughts and beliefs. If we start there, then you have the foundation to build anything you want on top of it. And then it's getting clear on who you are. Who's Toby? Who's Constantine? I was telling you before, I used to identify with my job. If I was in an unfortunate spot where they would let me go at the time, I would be devastated, right? Because my entire identity was my job. And many people listening, you may identify with being a father, a mother, a spouse, whatever role you have, whatever business you have. But that's not really you, right? Because you're not something else. You're not someone else. You are you. So who's that person, right? So as we identify that, we then find your gifts and strengths. Because you see, Toby, you have gifts and you have strengths. You Your strength maybe is to ask great questions, right? A gift of yours is amazing listening skills. We all have this, but nobody spends time to actually look through and say, well, what is my gift or gifts? What are they? What are my strengths? Because again, science shows us that if you focus on doubling down on your gifts and strengths, you're gonna have a significantly bigger ROI than focusing on your weaknesses. And by weaknesses, I mean things that you might not be great at, but you really I'm like, I want to do this. So in my case, when I started my podcast, I was like, I'm a high achiever. I'm a top performer. I can learn how to edit. I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah.
So then I spend 10, 20 hours a week editing, which is not my strength, not something I fully enjoy. Instead of spending 10, 20 hours on podcast interviews, on coaching, on other things that I'm great at. So that's what I'm talking about. And then from there, so now you have a solid foundation. You're very clear on who you are. So you have clarity around that, and you have your gifts and strengths, and you're amplifying them. You're doubling down on them. You're putting in the work. It's all about creating that vision. And to me, a vision is something that is worthy of you, meaning that what it is that you want in your those pillars that we talked about earlier, right? Like, who do you want to be in 3 years from now? And then pulling from that vision into the present. And then the last step is just putting it all together and integrating and bringing it together. And what you see with a system like this, and there's others you can employ, is that you will see amazingly fast results because it's tailored to go in a specific sequence. Because when I did my transformation, Toby, and it took me about 2 years, I had the steps in the wrong order. I started with step 2, which took me way too long because step 1 was not there yet, which is the foundation, right? So it's like, how do you find the right steps for you to take you to the next level?
Yeah, wow, thank you so much. I've learned so much from you. We could continue talking for hours about this, but I know there are people out there who still want to go deeper into this, maybe join your coaching service, listen to your podcast. So I'd like to know the best way to connect and work with you.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you for that opportunity. So I'm active on LinkedIn personally, both for my podcast and what I do. I post a lot of the stuff we talked about here, the research, my journey, the journey of many of my clients. You can see there, it's Constantin Morun. And my name doesn't have an E at the end. Constantin doesn't have an E. So you can find me. I run monthly events, either a 4-hour masterclass or a 5-day challenge. And there's pretty much one every month. And there you can find those at calmsuccesslive.com. And these are again to go through a lot more of what we discuss here. I break down my system and I give you the tools to be able to live, during the event and leave the event and transform your life
Mm.
with or without my help. Right. So you'll get access to all that information. And at Calm Success Live, you'll find out more information on that. And then, of course, with the podcast, Unleash Thyself, it's on YouTube, all the major podcasting platforms. And of course, the website is unleashthyself.com. And with that, I want to thank you, Toby. I want to thank the audience for listening in and know that you have the power to create anything in your life.
Yeah, thank you so much, Constantine. I really appreciate your presence and I appreciate everything that you shared on this podcast episode. I mean, I've learned so much, like from your own personal journey, your transformation journey, and the tools that you make use of to become who you are today. I'm going to place a link to your website, calmsuccesslife.com, in the show note of this episode, and the link to your podcast also will be in the show note of this episode. So anyone who is interested could just click on the link, copy the link, and reach out to you on whatever platform is suitable. Thank you so much, Constantine. This was
Hiya,
wonderful.
Toby.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Hey there, podcast enthusiasts. Are you ready to add a little sparkle to your day? If you're loving the insightful conversations and captivating stories on Mirror Talk Podcast, here's a friendly nudge to hit that subscribe button. By subscribing, you'll never miss out on the empowering messages and thought provoking discussions we bring to your ears. But wait, there's more. We're all about spreading positivity and inspiration, and you can be a part of it too. How? By sharing the love with your friends and family. Share this episode with your loved ones, and let's create a ripple effect of empowerment and growth together. And hey, if you've been enjoying what you hear, why not take a moment to leave us a glowing 5-star review? Your feedback fuels our passion to keep delivering content that resonates with you. So hit that subscribe button, share the love, and leave us a review. Let's keep the conversation going and spread the Mirror Talk magic far and wide. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, your support means the world to us.